Okay, everyone, I think we're live. Hello, hello. Rachel Smith here with Real and Real Estate. We are deviating a little bit from our normal way that we do things. I, of course, am not going to quit my day job with real estate. However, I wanted to utilize this platform to get some questions answered, kind of pick a professional's brains, and just deviate a little bit off of our normal topic. So here we are. Let me know everything is coming through okay, guys. Feel free to comment and ask any questions. I am bubbling with excitement to have attorney Steven Vinick on. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Steve. Hi, Steve. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on. So I am going to ask a few questions. If you guys have any legal questions, feel free to chime in the comments. And we're just going to roll with it from there. Let me see if I can figure out how to split the screen between the two of us, and we'll be good. Let's do this. So bear with me. Here we go. All right. So with everything going on with the COVID-19 situation, I have just had these questions with these legal issues as I see headlines, Facebook social media feed, all kinds of just legality issues, and it's just driving me crazy. So I said, hey, let me call my family attorney and say, hey, can you help us out? So this is Steve Vinick. He is a practicing attorney in Montgomery County and the surrounding territories. So let's just get right to it. As you are really right outside the nation's capital, you get to see a lot of different things. So legal matters that you've seen already arise from the impact of COVID, what litigation issues have you seen thus far, and what do you feel is going to continue to arise from this situation? I mean, have you seen new things happening?
So we're in a very strange state right now because, I don't mean state of Maryland, I mean situation, because the courts in Maryland and DC and Virginia are closed. They've been very clear. The only things that they're hearing right now are emergency matters, and most of the emergency matters tend to deal with either a criminal matter or a petition for protection from domestic violence, or if there's an emergency custody issue. But the issues that are popping up now that we expect to happen once courts resume, and for example, Maryland, the courts are closed through June 5, so they won't open until June 8. And that's statewide. That's not just by Montgomery County, and it's statewide. Okay. And not only that, our highest court in Maryland, the Court of Appeals, actually took the step of extending what we call tolling statutes of limitations, so that while the court is closed, or the courts are closed, the statutes of limitation won't run. So that once the courts reopen, then you can file a new action, you can file a new lawsuit, and pursue your matter that way. So it's a very interesting place to be in right now. I mean,
it really is, and I don't think we've ever recorded history quite been in this situation like this, where everything's just at a halt. Meanwhile, life does still continue, but it's almost halfway. So things that we typically would deal with, we no longer can, because what we would rely on for legal matters, you can't do anything about it. So, I mean, do you foresee things just picking up right where they left off? And I'm going to also be watching the comments too, so if you guys see me looking around, do you think that things are just going to pick right back up where they left off? Do you think there's going to be more issues now domestically?
So it's funny that you asked that, because when the shelter-in-place order started out, and these were commentators around the country, not just with Maryland, but with other states, the newscasters would make these jokes about, we bet we're going to see a lot of COVID-19 babies because people are having to stay inside. Yeah. Well, I don't think of myself as too jaded, but the lawyer in me was like, I think we're going to see a lot more family law litigation and separations and divorces than babies, because it's this is unprecedented and nobody's ever been in this type of a situation before. Yeah, exactly. So and I believe that when the courts do reopen, the two areas that are going to get hit the most actually will be family law and actually bankruptcy, because there's a lot of businesses that can't withstand what's going on right now, and even with the help that they're getting from the government, they're not going to be able to stay afloat. Right, exactly. The other thing is, once the shelter-in-place order goes away, let me address your first question about what's going to happen with the courts.
Yes.
For example, the courts I know are going to take at least 4 weeks or so to have their staff and the clerk's offices get up to speed, because they're going to need to start, because they're going to get a huge influx of filing. Right, exactly. The second thing that they're going to have to do is, the courts are rescheduling trial dates and hearing dates right now, but it's very haphazard, because the lawyers were not able to clear any dates with the clerk's office or with the assignment offices. So if there's a trial, let's say May 5 in Montgomery County District Court, they'll postpone it till July 15th. Well, July 15th, the lawyers may be on vacation, the parties may be away. Who knows? There may be other conflicts. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I honestly don't think that jury trials are going to start until probably August or September, at least in Maryland, because it's going to take that long for the system and the administration to get up to speed. Secondly, if you get a summons to appear for jury duty, are you going to want to be, even if the shelter in orders place is not in effect, in close contact with
in a courtroom with
right.
multiple people coming in and out?
Yes.
No. I mean, now, can you utilize that to say, hey, guess what, Judge? Love you. However, I'm not showing up. I don't want to be at risk. I mean, where's the legality in that?
So I think the courts are really trying to figure out what the courts have never been in this situation either. And they're trying to figure out exactly what they should do. For example, if you're picking a jury in Montgomery County Circuit Court, which is right there in Rockville, there's really only one courtroom, which would probably be big enough to select a jury where you have the people that are in what's called the panel while they're getting ready to be selected sit 6 feet apart, and that's the ceremonial courtroom. And there's no way you can have every single trial, have every single jury picked there. There's no way.
It's just
so it just can't happen.
Meanwhile, these are important issues that need to be addressed that are relying on the court system to help. We're really at an impasse.
Absolutely. The one issue that does pop up, though, is the fact of with child custody arrangements or child visitation.
Good one.
That is an issue that's coming up. There have been a number of cases where one spouse is saying, well, I'm not going, even though you're supposed to have visitation and we have a separation agreement and a child custody arrangement and agreement, I'm not going to let you have the child back because of the pandemic. And you know what? I'm glad. Sorry to interrupt. I can only hear him when I have this in, guys. So just bear with me. My audio issues. I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because before we went live, I said, you know what? This is a situation. I think this is real with Rachel. I'm going to keep it real too. So my oldest son, I share custody with from a previous relationship. Great father. We co-parent well together. However, it happened to fall on a day that my son was with his dad when they decided to pretty much shut everything down. And those days that followed, he stayed, and I said, you know what, we were all kind of nervous, deer in the headlights, didn't want to be around everybody. He's safe, he's there, he's with his dad, everything's fine. Well, you know what, guys, I'm going to be honest, a few weeks went by, and I'm like, hey, where's my kid? We're supposed to be following this schedule. We're supposed to be, sticking to it, and as far as I know, all of those laws are still in play. And of course, this is new for me too, and I didn't want to put him at risk or put myself or my other children at risk or my husband at risk, so I kind of let it go. And then it gets to the point, every day I feel different. Every day I'm feeling a little different about, what's going on in the world. I think that's pretty much how everybody is. One day it's like, oh my gosh, don't touch anything, don't leave the house. The next day it's like, okay, we're okay, let's do this. So eventually I said, hey, you know what, I've missed plenty of my time. I would like to have him back now, and so of course he obliged. But for some families that aren't so blessed or so lucky to have a situation where they came to a meeting of the minds, what do? Can you still, after all this is over and the courts are open, can you say, hey, you know what? They held my son hostage, they held my daughter hostage. What legal ramifications can come from situations like that domestically? So there's good and bad. So number one, if one parent is withholding the child because and using the pandemic as an excuse, that's bogus. Okay, that really isn't going to hold any water. the courts will look at it on a case-by-case basis, but overwhelmingly, I believe that the courts are going to say, no, you have an agreement. Each party can get a letter from their lawyer allowing them to travel to, so that if you're non-essential, you don't have to stay at home. You can, you can travel with your child to bring your child to the other parent and vice versa. So I think that that's a completely bogus excuse, and that doesn't hold any water. What the problem is that many courts don't look at that as an emergency. So parent who doesn't have the child and wants to say, look, the other parent should be held in contempt because they're not sticking to the agreement. If the courts say, well, this isn't an emergency matter because they're only hearing emergencies right now, they're closed, but only for emergency matters, and you're going to be out of luck until the courts reopen. And that's an issue. And the family law litigation, the family law division has more filings than any other division. And there's more cases, there's more issues. These are issues that don't require juries. There are no jury trials with family law issues, but it's it's very, very. Again, it's an unprecedented situation right now.
We're all kind of like, what do we do? How do we act? We need to stay professional. We need to abide by the laws, but what laws are there for all of this? Exactly. So I think we're all in the same book as far as that goes.
But let me give you an example. Okay, you're a realtor. Okay, and I think that you have a great realtor, I might add, to everybody listening.
Thank you.
But you have you're at a job where your situation will be different from, let's say, a healthcare worker who's a nurse or an emergency room physician who's on the front line.
My mom.
And the one parent who doesn't want to give their arrangement to that other parent may have.
You're a doctor. You're on the front lines. I don't.
Absolutely right. Right, you're higher risk. So, again, it's going to be done on a case-by-case basis, but that's the harsh reality of it. That's really what's going to be at issue.
Oh, man. So do you foresee that these emergency cases where there might be one ex-spouse or what have you parent that's on the front lines and the other parent is stating no, do you think that there's some validity behind it where they have, a good ground to stand on to say, you're a doctor right there around, is there any
I think there could be. Yeah, I do. Okay. I think keep in mind also, it's one thing to, there's no vaccine. And right now there's no medication. The remdesivir that's administered when you're at the hospital and you're on a ventilator or you're near to being on a ventilator and, you're in a dire situation. So there's not much that they can do to treat COVID-19 right now if you do get it, other than the way you would typically, be hydrated.
Deal with the symptoms.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that I think they're, and when a parent says, look, the standard is the best interest of the child, and I think it's not healthy and not wise to put our child at risk because you're on the front line, I think that would have some validity.
I understand that, and I see that, and I can agree. We're going to jump into just a question that came through over on MidAtlanticTV.com's YouTube channel that we're streaming live on. And this one is from R. Wags. Hey, buddy, how are you? Question, do tenants still have to pay monthly rent, or do they get a pass for a period of time? What are your legal opinions and thoughts on that, Steve?
Again, that's on a case-by-case basis, and it's on it's basically between you and your rental company. But from what I understand, most rental companies are being and same with mortgage companies, are being very, very good about trying to work cooperatively with everybody. So, for example, with a mortgage company, I know two people who are now out of work, and their mortgage company said you've got to pass for 90 days. You don't have to do anything. I also know that there are rental companies, property management companies that are doing the same thing. They'll typically need some proof or documentation that you've lost your job or you're in having financial issues. But as long as you're able to corroborate that, they're going to work with you.
I've seen that too, where different property management companies are willing to help. Sorry, little technical difficulties behind the scenes here. And mortgage companies, of course. Now, having a mortgage deferment, there are some things that can occur from that, and again, like you said, it's really case by case. There isn't one large lump sum of people and what can be done. There's always going to be I think, ramifications and repercussions for any decision that's made in any type of legal issue if you decide to pursue it, right? So I think that it's like you said, a case by case.
But I would add one thing though. If you're in that type of a situation, don't just unilaterally decide I can't pay, so I'm not paying. Go to your rental company and tell them, okay? Because they've been. I can't speak obviously for all of them, but they've been very responsive for the most part to
that's good
to doing it right.
Yeah,
Because
and then again, just document it. Hey, don't just not pay. Go and say, hey, make that attempt to try and help. Hey, make that attempt to communicate. Hey, I'm having an issue. I'm not working right now. I'm not able to make make it so that it's a documented thing that you did try and seek some type of help or counsel from that company. Okay. And then David Williams just said, good question at RWAGs, and domestic problems are unfortunately on the increase. Yes, and I think in more arenas than not, really. I mean, like you said, with divorces and everything else that are coming up. Now, that you specialize in criminal law, correct?
I do, yeah, criminal law and personal injury and medical malpractice.
Personal injury is one of your main go-tos. So with that said, what do you think is going to happen with criminal activity from all of this? Do you think once the courts reopen, we're going to see an increase? I feel like I haven't seen as much police officers out. I don't know. What's going on? Do you think there's going to be more stuff going on?
So what's going on there is crime is down by about, from one statistic I think I read, 70%. 70%. And that's because people are not going out. They're afraid to, they're worried about it, and they're not subjecting themselves to going out and committing.
The criminals don't want to get sick.
They don't want to get sick either, right? And the flip side though is that the police are not being this is nothing against the police, but the police know the reality of the situation, and they're not going to try to lock up somebody for a minor offense and subject them to the possibility of catching COVID-19 by putting them in jail. So I don't want to say they're looking the other way, but they're not enforcing certain things as vigilantly as they would if there was no pandemic. Exactly. So, and I'm very fortunate that I work for a big firm. I do a lot of personal injury. I mean, those kinds of cases have unfortunately gone down, but my friends who are attorneys and who are solo practitioners doing criminal defense are dying because they get paid to go to court. The courts are closed except for emergencies, and the phone just isn't really ringing. It's just not ringing.
Everybody is being on good behavior.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, man.
If they're committing crimes, they must be doing it in their house.
I guess. Oh, geez. Well, then be prepared for the floodgates to open as soon as this is all over. I'm just saying. Let's move on to the next question. I'm just checking here to see if we have anything else. All right. So the next question is going to be litigation involving media. I've seen call out, so to say, of the fake news situation. Media may be reporting on something that they think might be true, but really in actuality it's false. Things in that arena, so to say. Things that maybe media, can they get in trouble for the types of reporting that's been happening? Is there any legal ramifications in the media?
I don't think there's anything new that's going to arise from the pandemic. The news industry is a business. Every network is rushing to try to cover what's going on and give accurate news. Some other some are, some aren't. Just 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, and I'm just going to call them out just for 1 minute, is Fox News focused on the theory that that COVID-19 started in a Chinese lab and then was weaponized. And right now there's been no proof of that. There's been no. So I don't think anyone's going to get sued over that. I don't think that anyone's going to get sued over President Trump's comments about maybe disinfectant, if it was put in the body, would be able to protect or kill COVID-19. Again, people enjoy certain immunities. Newscasters, news stations, news companies enjoy these same types of immunities, and I just don't foresee that happening.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of segues into my next question. Now, this is a source from CNN, obviously. Missouri is suing China over coronavirus impacts, saying the country did little to stop the spread of the disease. What are your thoughts? I mean, you did touch on the fact of suing China. I mean, point blank, can anyone here in the U.S., whether it be an individual, the government, an entity, small businesses, big businesses, can any party sue China? Is that possible? Do you foresee something coming of it?
This is not my bailiwick, but
I know,
I don't see anything really coming of it. I just don't, because
there's not enough weight behind it.
Plus, I mean, how can you possibly prove that you wouldn't have caught it anyway? Okay, if it's a disease that is very, very difficult to contain. I mean, you're going to have to prove also that your own country didn't take certain steps that it should have taken. There's a whole host of problems that I think are going to arise ultimately to really be an obstacle to trying to get relief that way. So I just
it's just to get something from this. Yeah.
I wouldn't put my money on that one. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, right. And maybe some that might have a solid ground to stand on, and some that may not, and they're just trying to take advantage of the situation for financial gain. Right.
I mean, that, or they're trying to simply show their citizens that they're not going to take things lying down. But at the end of the day, again, China has certain immunities as a country when you're suing a country, and I think they're going to have incredible proof problems.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to boil down to, is the proof being in the pudding. And
right.
Is their pudding.
I mean, you could take that as an example, and just to segue real quick, but the state of Georgia, their governor has basically opened up, you name it, bowling alleys, tattoo parlors, nail salons, hair salons. And, if the pandemic, and this is what the medical experts believe, starts to spread even higher because they've eased those restrictions on what you can do. Right. I mean, the question will become, well, can people who've been, afflicted with COVID-19 now sue the governor and now sue the...
Because he released? I mean,
correct.
Really, you could just be shooting blanks all over the place,
Correct.
For any reason, and
right.
I think it's really going to boil down to the ultimate proof and having a good foundation of it, which, speaking of people getting sick and suing because they get sick, my next question is, do you think that there will be a legal chaos in the healthcare industry, possibly over the COVID-19 death reporting, if they're kind of blowing it up? And do you think that there might be litigation over PPE and the lack of thereof? Anything in the healthcare industry? What are your thoughts? Not having enough testing, things like that. Do you think that there's any type of litigation that could potentially arise from that?
I think, it's funny, when the litigation, the question about will there be any litigation, it's a loaded question because...
I know, just like, boom, who's suing who?
I hate to say it, right, but you can pretty much find a lawyer to sue for just about anything as long as it's not totally frivolous. So I think that there may be litigation on some of these issues, on lack of testing, on lack of gear, lack of the PPE. I think that certainly is something that we could see some litigation about. I don't know that there's going to be litigation about falsely reporting the totals of cases and deaths, and and plus there's a lot of certain states are reporting certain things but not other things. So I don't know that there's really going to be successful litigation that's going to arise from that. But I think for people that, for example, people that should have gotten money under the stimulus plan, or people that were denied because they ran out of PPE, the equipment. I think that might give rise to legitimate claims.
That's true. I mean, that's the thing. It makes sense when you put yourself in the person that has an issue shoes, right? It makes sense why they would want to do that. But again, I think, as with everything, it's going to boil down to the weight of it and what evidence and what you have behind it to support those claims. And then, of course, our Big Bang question, which I've just seen a lot of and personally have questions on. And again, just broad question. I know this isn't your thing.
It's
However, infringement of Bill of Rights and our constitutional rights as a country, with shutting down businesses, acting as if, and I saw some of these headlines of martial law. Is there anything you think that could arise legally from these actions of the shutdown order? Do our governors have the right to say, no, close up these businesses, stay at home, you can't do X, Y, Z? I mean, do they have that power, right? Obviously they have the power if they're doing it, but do they have, is it legal?
So that's a very interesting question for a couple reasons. One is President Trump has made it very clear that he's deferring to each individual state. So the state's governors have that power. They have the authority to issue an emergency within the state, to issue orders to stay in, to shelter in place, to stay home, to restrict businesses to only those essential businesses. They do have that authority. The interesting thing, and I don't think anyone's ever really seen that before. People, the closest we can come to something that's of a national issue like this would be for September 11th. I mean, that's okay, and totally affected everybody. And in the national government, the federal government took charge and led the way. They didn't defer to the states, when it came to airlines and travel and
they
shutting
just
down.
said, hey, we're going to handle this on a federal level and took control.
Exactly, but that has not happened with the situation. Each thing has led to the state. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, has come out publicly to say that his office will sue states that they think are not really allowing people their constitutional right to have a business and to earn a living, and if it's restrictive. Now, I don't know exactly how you would do that. I don't know really if that kind of a legal argument does hold water. Again, I read today, I believe either today or yesterday, that President Trump is not extending the past, I think, May 15, the guidelines that the federal government issued. So, there are going to be conflicts if there not are already, and there are differences between the states that already in terms of what people need to do and what you're not allowed to do. And so to that end, that's what William Barr has said, that his office is going to look into it and prosecute where they think it's appropriate.
Where he deems necessary, I guess. Yeah, because it's I'm just seeing it so much. We own small businesses. I own one. We own two, and just the shutdown in general we've been in a blessed situation where we're still considered essential, so we're still kind of doing what we need to do. But there's so many other people out there that own small businesses, and they're like, this isn't right. Who can say yay or nay that we can shut down? So in black and white, the governor can say yes, shut down, and make it law. Is that how I'm understanding it, or is it kind of more gray area?
No, it's law. Once if it's been ordered by the governor, it's now a law that has to be. Yeah. So you have to comply, but and if you choose not to comply, you not necessarily will, but you could be prosecuted for it.
You could be prosecuted. You could be arrested.
Right.
And prosecuted.
So that's the big issue. But nobody knows what's going to happen. Okay, except for one thing, right? And that is this. No matter who you're listening to or what you're looking at, the number of cases is still continuing to increase exponentially, and that's how a pandemic works. And so, we've not been in this situation before, and if somebody tells you that they know exactly what's going to happen, they're lying. They don't know. Okay, but you always want to lean over to the side of caution, and that's what they're trying to do.
Yep. Yeah, and I see that, and they're trying to do what's best for the totality of the population, but however, any choices that are made, whether it's keeping open or shutting down, are going to have negative ramifications no matter what. And I think it's just what's the lesser of two evils, right? Ultimately. And
absolutely.
And it is what it is. But it's very interesting to hear your thoughts and opinions on the different legal matters that are arising and can arise, and I think will continue to come into play as we continue through the year of 2020 with this pandemic and all these situations. It's just crazy, and I think you will see an influx of business to come.
I'm sure, and I think there's going, I think you're going to see more people buying homes with the feds.
Oh yeah, I'm still pretty busy. You know what? As you said, nobody can really predict what's happening. I thought, things are going to slow down and chill out. Now, whereas I have had a few clients that are like, hey, let's pump the brakes and chill out and just wait till this goes over. Other clients, I'm in multiple offer situations. Buyers are coming out of the woodwork, ready to buy. And I think what we're seeing is the supply and demand. There's still a large demand and there's just no supply. So
Right.
I'm still very busy, thankfully, just deviating and assimilating to the climate, really. That's all you can do.
Right.
Just kind of maneuvering with the changes. So it's been very interesting, and I think all businesses are going to see a big increase as we go.
I hope so. I hope so. The small businesses are getting hammered, so I hope you're
real
right.
quick, I know businesses are getting hammered. So my buddy Stig, thank you so much for this live chat. Finally, some unfiltered news. We are many here in the old world who are concerned. Cheers from Denmark. Oh, hi, Stig.
Oh,
I wonder
wow.
what's happening in Denmark, because I think things are getting a little bit different over there. If I haven't had time to catch up on everything.
Denmark is, I believe, the one Scandinavian country that did not order restrictions or shutdowns or shelters in place or anything like that.
Well, I guess we're going to have to watch, just like with the market stats, we're going to have to watch in the next upcoming months to see how things play out. So, all right, well, I will look, and if there's any more comments or questions, as I post this on my other social media outlets, I will be sure to shoot those over to you. In the meantime, how can people reach you if they have other questions about any type of court cases or to inquire upon your services? What's the best way to reach you?
So I'm an attorney with Stein Sperling, Bennett, DeJong, Driscoll. We've got our main offices in Rockville. We've got several offices around Montgomery County and in Virginia. And you can reach me by phone, 301-838-3298. Again, 301-838-3298. And you can reach me by email, which is svinick, S is for Steve, svinick@steinsperling.com.
Perfect.
And please reach out. Feel free to contact me.
And thank you so much for your time, because I know that you were a very busy guy. We tried to do this a few times, and I had some technical errors, so I'm so appreciative of your time. And I'm excited.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm sorry. My firm, by the way, I may be doing personal injury. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and medical malpractice and criminal defense, but my firm is a general practice firm. We do just about every kind of law. So I've got lots of colleagues who are ready to help. We've got 51 lawyers.
And they're good, trust me.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
It is real with Rachel, so let me say, they're very good. You've always been fabulous with anything that I've asked of you, and of course with my family as well. So thank you so much, guys.
My pleasure.
If you need anything, reach out. Steve, thank you so much for your time today, guys. We will catch you on the next show. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me, Rachel. Thank you.